Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Shenanigan, and today I just want to discuss about an issue that I faced and actually saw a lot of people facing when they upgrade a computer, and that's specifically the CPU usage of the computer being too high in games and the GPU usage being not high enough. So I recently did an upgrade to my computer, and I got the Ryzen 5600X, considering that I read a lot of reviews that this is actually one of the best CPUs in the market for gaming. And I did hold off on buying a GPU, and I used my older HD 5970, uh, but it gave out in a few days with this new setup. So I actually had to end up purchasing a GPU as well, and decided to go, near the top of the line with 3080 Ti. Um, I think it cost me about $2,200 to get this one. But the problem I got after I bought this GPU with the CPU is the fact that the CPU usage went as high as 80, 90, 100% while playing games, and the GPU was not being used enough, maybe 60 or 70% in games. I did realize that when I increase the resolution, move up to 4K, the GPU would be used more, but that did not lower the CPU usage down enough. And that's where the issues I was facing started, because I didn't know what to do. I really didn't want to upgrade the CPU any further, or purchase a 5800 or a 5900X to pair with this GPU. So a couple of things I did. I just want to talk about it. I did read a lot of reviews and articles about how to fix this, and saw a lot of videos on YouTube. Followed a few suggestions, which most of them are not something that work. Like in system configuration, when you go to boot and go to advanced option and you enable all the processors, this just enables the processor on the startup of the computer. So it's not going to actually help you increase the GPU usage and decrease the CPU usage. One of the things that does help is going ahead and overclocking your CPU. Uh, that's something I don't know how to do. So in the Ryzen Master Utility, I just went ahead and enabled the auto overclock, which did improve performance slightly, but not enough for it to be considerable. I went to system configuration again and disabled all these services to reduce the CPU usage. But these kind of things only are helpful if this, any one of these services is using CPU more than, let's say, 20 or 30%. So it would substantially reduce the CPU usage. Same with the startup items. Though I did disable a few of them, but I'm just going to enable this right here. But it wasn't substantial, though it did make some difference. Next thing I actually saw was going to display setting, going to graphic settings, and enabling the hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. What this does is transfers some of the tasks that are supposed to be done by the CPU to GPU, so it leaves a little room for the CPU. You can try that as well. You can probably add the games you want to use right here and move them to high performance. Makes slight difference. Again, not a lot of it. I did notice that increasing the resolution did actually help me get something more out of the GPU. And if you don't have a 4K monitor or a 1440, you can always go to the 3D application settings here in the NVIDIA control panel and maybe increase the DSR factor uh, a bit to increase the resolution within the game. So even if you have a 1080p monitor, you can always go 2 times and go to 4K and probably 8K by using 4X. But I didn't do any changes here. So just want to let you know that the biggest difference was made by something called a resizable bar. So you go to NVIDIA control panel, go to system information. and you see that the resizable bar here says yes, it was no before. Uh, it's the same thing in AMD called AMD SAM. So if you go to AMD system information, you might see AMD SAM as no here. So what we want to do is to enable the resizable bar option, and in order to do that, first of all, you want to make sure that your BIOS for both the motherboard and the CPU, the GPU, beg your pardon, is updated. For MSI, you can go to live update. Whatever motherboard you have, it would have some sort of function to update the BIOS. Once the BIOS is updated, you can go into the BIOS. You can go to advanced setting or PCI Express setting, and then enable the GPU usage, the resizable bar, or the AMD SAM. So NVIDIA does better job in explaining what it is. What it says is that uh, GPU memory constantly transfer textures, shaders, and geometry via many small CPU to GPU transfers. And using the resizable bar, assets can instead be requested as needed and sent in full to the CPU. And so the CPU can efficiently access the entire frame buffer. And if multiple requests are made, transfers can occur concurrently rather than queuing. So this small CPU to GPU transfers increase the usage of CPU a lot. And this sending these shaders and these textures in full reduces the usage of CPU substantially. By enabling this one feature, my CPU usage went down from about 80% or so to between 5 and 40%. I have never seen CPU go above 40% anymore. It usually stays between the 15-20% range. And it also led the GPU usage to go up to 100%, which means that now I would be able to overclock my GPU as well. So of course, if you have a lower end processor, a mid-range processor, you don't actually have to compromise on getting a mid-range video card. You can actually get a good one. These are all the chipsets, the Intel and the AMD chipsets that that are compatible with this function. All the NVIDIA 30 series cards and the AMD 60 series cards are compatible with this function. All the motherboards here which have the similar compatibility. So if you go to the MSI website, it does tell you how to enable, rather update the BIOS first, and then go to the motherboard and enable the resizable bar support. These are all the chipsets for Intel and AMD which are compatible with both these functions. Just go ahead and enable it, and you would see a lot of difference. And finally, uh, after doing the resizable bar, just want to address the MSI center. Once I believe ASUS and Gigabyte and all these kind of motherboards would have some sort of utility built in as well. But MSI Center, and this is a upgrade version of Dragon Center, has this feature called User Scenario. It does have this game mode as well, which you can enable and add the games you want uh, to be in a better performance. But if you go to User Scenario and you go to Extreme Performance Mode, this helps provide a lot of voltage and power to the components in your computer to provide a better gaming experience. Enabling the resizable bar did go ahead and help me increase my frame rate performance on games, for example, like Shadow of Tomb Raider, from about 50-52 frames at 4K maximum settings to about 60 odd frames, 60-62. And changing this to extreme performance allowed me to go probably around 70 frames or so. In other games such as Forza Horizon 5 and I just forgot the name of the games. Metro, I think, yeah, Metro Exodus, which went up around 20-25 frames as well. I've not checked all these games so far, but if you do have an option to enable the resizable bar or AMD SAM in your motherboard, please go ahead and do so. And if your motherboard has such a utility to change the performance mode, please go ahead and do that. As soon as I switch to extreme performance, it automatically overclocks my GPU as well, both core clock and memory clock, and I do have the ability to increase it further if I want. I've tried this 3080 Ti to about 1950, 1960 megahertz stable without any issues. I've not yet tried to boost it to 2 gigahertz yet, but I'm going to try that, possibly put some more gaming videos on that. But that's what I wanted to know, rather let everybody know in case you're facing an issue with the low GPU and high CPU usage. These are the things you can actually try. Thank you again for watching, and have an excellent day. Bye.